Amazing. I think everyone is slowly starting to come in. Welcome to the academyEX Exploring Masters Pathways and Possibilities info session this afternoon. Hopefully we can spark some inspiration around the different Masters programs that we deliver here at academyEX. So I think we're all empty in the waiting room, so we'll kick off and get started. Before we do that, and before I introduce myself, I will just open us with karakia. So let me share my screen and feel free to follow along as well. At academyEX, we always open all of our sessions and meetings with karakia to bring us all into the space and allow us to leave everything that's happened during the day and to focus on the kaupapa that is ahead of us. Ko te kawa oronga, ko te kawa oraro, ko te kawa ora, ko te kawa ora. E rongo whakaerehia ki runga, turuturu ofiti, whakamaua ki a tina, hui tai here. So welcome, as I said, to the academyEX Exploring Masters Pathways and Possibilities information session this afternoon. My name's Hayley Sparks. I'm the academic director here at academyEX. So I have the privilege of hosting and facilitating this session this afternoon. On this slide on the screen, you can see a bit of an overview of what we're going to do over the next hour or so. We're very fortunate to be joined by a couple of current students and one of our master's alumni who are going to share their experiences and their master's journeys with us so that you can hear from the voices of those who are either doing it or have done it, which is always a great pleasure. Then we will hear from each of our master's program leads. So on the call, we have Fiona, Hansine, Herbert, and Dave, and they'll give you a quick rundown of what each of the three master's programs that we deliver involves. Then we'll talk a little bit about how academyEX can support you to fund your masters and talk through a little bit in that space. Touch on some important information for international students. So Mason, who is our International Marketing Manager, is here on the call today as well. And throughout is an opportunity for you to ask questions. So feel free to use the chat function if you have any questions throughout the session. We will have some time at the end as well if you'd like to come off mute and ask your question verbally. But throughout the session, any questions that are in the chat, the team will either answer or save them for me to be or us to be able to answer towards the end. So the session is being recorded and will be sent out by email tomorrow as a bit of a follow-up for anybody who's not able to make it. If you could keep yourself on mute, that would be great. As I said, use the chat function to ask questions, and if you feel comfortable, it's great to see so many people with videos on, smiling faces on this Monday afternoon. So let's get started and jump into a panel. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now so that you can see everybody and not the slides, because it's not what's important right now. But we're very privileged to have, as I said, three students joining us to share their experiences. So we have Adam, who is a graduate of the Master of Technological Futures, Noel, who I believe is just about to finish his Master of Contemporary Education in the new year, and Kyla Lee, who is about halfway through her Master of Change and Organisational Resilience journey after starting at the beginning of the year. So the first thing we'll do is we'll just get the three panelists to kind of say hi, introduce themselves, and a little bit about why they chose to do the program that they are currently studying or have finished, and then we'll move on to some other questions. So Adam, Noel, Kyla Lee, any of you want to kind of volunteer to go first, or?
Yep, I don't mind to go first.
Thanks, Adam.
Cool. Kia ora, everybody. My name's Adam Barnes from down in Wellington. I've done the Master of Technological Futures program. I just recently graduated a few weeks ago with my cohort. which was fantastic. I initially studied part-time and then switched to full-time, so finished it earlier this year. And yeah, I found it an absolutely amazing program. I chose it. I'm a software developer by trade, and I've sort of been through some leadership and management, and I found myself getting further away from the craft that I was doing, and I wanted to go back to sort of product development and research to build on something. Not that this course needs software skills, but for me personally, that's what I wanted to go to. So yeah, I had an idea of a product that I wanted to build, and the program seemed like a perfect opportunity for me to dig into that, do some research, and see how far I can go with that.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. And I'm sure we'll hear a little bit more about your journey as we go. Noel or Kyla Lee?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in there.
Thank
So,
you.
kia ora ko Noel toko ingoa. My name is Noel McClements. I'm based down in Nelson. And so currently I'm just about to finish, as Hayley said, to finish my Masters of Contemporary Education. So a little bit of work left to do, but you know, I found the whole process and the journey of going through this to be so valuable, you know, in terms of my practice as a teacher in the classroom. You know, I think as educators, we always have really good, you know, really good ideas about wanting to dig deep into all the research and the pedagogy that's out there, but yeah, we're just so time pressed. I think signing up to the Masters sort of pushed me into that category of, you know, I've made a commitment here, you know, a financial commitment and otherwise, so that I just felt that, you know, I had to push through with it. And you know, I've really enjoyed what's been happening as a result of it, because, you know, there's a lot of options for tailoring it towards what your focus is, you know. So for me in the classroom, I've got to focus around literacy. And even though, you know, it's a master's based around contemporary education, there's a lot of aspects that you can sort of dig in and tailor it towards your own, I guess, niche area of teaching within the school as well. So yeah, I mean, I did the postgrad a few years ago, and so my master's component sort of, I guess, continued on from there. And I've been spending the last 2 years working on that. And this year I've been fortunate enough to even have study leave for the last 6 months, which has meant that I'm basically living my best life at the minute, because I've nearly finished the work and I still have a bit of time left. So yeah.
Perfect. Dream scenario. Thank you. And Kyla Lee.
Kia ora koutou, ko Kyla Lee toko ingoa. So I was in the first cohort or am in the first cohort of the Masters of Change and Organisational Resiliency. I was looking around at doing my Masters and had looked at a number of institutions, and just found that this really spoke to who I am, what I'm looking for at a master's program, as well as something that was a lot more practical. So the traditional university way didn't really have what I was after. So that's why I went down this route. I'm 2/3 through, so we're just getting started into the project piece, which is the real meaty piece. So I've just felt that the study that we've done today has really helped set us up for success. And I've really, really enjoyed working with my cohort, loving these days that we all get to come together and just have some great kōrero on the work that we're doing.
Amazing. Cool. So Kyla Lee's been in the lab today, actually, with one of her workshop days, with some of her cohort, which has been always rays of sunshine when we have students in the lab. Moving into the next kind of space, and you've kind of touched on it a little bit, but if you were to describe, I guess, your learning experience with academyEX, how would you kind of describe it? And if you've done kind of tertiary study before, how would you say that it's different to what you may have experienced in the past? Any thoughts?
So sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, no. Okay. For me, it's been out of the box thinking. It's definitely a different way of learning, but I'm finding it is a lot more nuance to the way that learning happens now in our real life experiences. And I'm very supportive. I'm really enjoying the support I get from academyEX on just little bits and pieces if I'm kind of going off on a tangent. Everyone's so helpful and so easy to get hold of.
Thank you.
Yeah, so from my experience of tertiary education a number of years ago compared to academyEX, certainly it's a lot less. There's certain structure, but you can take an idea and go deep on that idea and research. There's plenty of flexibility in terms of the direction you take it, and everybody's there to be able to support you and guide you. And then the way the projects sort of build on top of each other take you in a path to be able to sort of get to the end. Whereas I found with traditional tertiary education, it's paper after paper after paper, and they don't necessarily build on top of one another. Yeah, so it's very, very, it's different format, but it guides you along that process, so it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely agree with that, Adam. I mean, the way that sort of, you know, a major part of the Masters of Contemporary Education is a project-based change project that happens, but everything kind of leads up, all the work that you're doing leads up to that. And it's really that practice-based change project where I think you can tailor it to meet whatever your particular area is or whatever your focus or goal is that you're working in. I know certainly in an education context. And for me, I think being down in Nelson, you're quite limited to like face-to-face options as well that you have, and so I think the format of the academyEX really suited that, you know, and you were able to regularly meet up with other like-minded souls around the country, and to have those conversations, and yeah, to dig deep into some of the theory and the practice that you're working on. So yeah, that's been
Great, awesome, lovely to hear, and lots of the things that we really try and I guess really focus on, and you'll hear come up through as Hansine, Fiona, and Herbert talk through the programs as well later on. So you've all kind of touched a little bit on kind of what you have done or what you're focused on in the Masters, but did you come to the Masters programs with an idea? And kind of how did it evolve? What was the project that you've either done or are doing?
Yeah, I can start with that. So there was an idea that I'd been toying around with for a few years, and I'd actually been looking at Tech Futures Lab and academyEX prior to joining, but that was prior to COVID, and I would have had to travel to Auckland and those sort of things. So I joined during COVID, and we were a fully a remote cohort. And so I found that was the perfect opportunity for me to join from Wellington and explore the idea that I had. And my research question was, how might communities and organisations use a more decentralised workforce, a more structured project approach, and greater use of automation to help fill the massive digital skills gap that's coming over the next 10 years. So with the amount of technology and change that's happening, there's going to be a huge skills gap between the people who are able to fulfill those work and do those work, and the people that need those workers. So I had an idea of building a product and a business model to try and solve that, and used, I guess, a framework as part of my project, and built on top of it as the different assessments came up to build that. And then in the project phase, actually built a prototype, and then built the full working product. So yeah, I had an idea and managed to sort of get that right through to execution. It's great.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I think in my situation, I don't know whether I necessarily you know, jumped into the Masters having a bit of an idea what the project or plan was going to be, but it sort of grew out of it. And I think, as I mentioned before, you know, I think those early days and the study and the assignments were quite you know, they were quite general, but also about the, you know, the big ticket items in education at that time. You know, what's current, and, you know, culturally responsive pedagogy, collaboration, and engagement, all sort of key areas that that, you know, that we know are important within education and within schools. And I think for me, you know, in the school that I teach in, I sort of have a bit of a, well, I lead literacy, and so it made sense then to try and, you know, to make that project that I was doing sort of connect into that, because yeah, that's it gave me a great opportunity to then, you know, you feel valid in supporting and leading people within your teams at school, you know, when you have the pedagogy and the research behind you. And so for me, I jumped into, you know, looking at current issues in education at the minute around literacy and, you know, what's wrong with these kids? Why can't we get them to write? You know, and so for me, I was looking at how can we support kids in some of the mechanics around sentence level writing, but to do so in an engaging and collaborative way. And it led down, you know, to go down roads looking at gamification, or to look at, you know, how can we effectively use collaboration to get kids to share their idea. And then there's a lot of learning that came out of it. And you know, the work that I've done it sort of shaped some of the way that we're going to move in the direction that we're going to have at school as well. So there's a real sort of purpose and an outcome to what I've been doing. So, but yeah, it's been, yeah, an incredibly valid experience.
And Kyla Lee, you're just starting your project, but anything you can share?
So I didn't have a project when I first came here, and as we progressed, I had a clear idea. After presenting my research, that got changed, and I'm on to my third iteration of a project idea, but I'm really, really excited about the way that I'm going with it now. So my project is on mana wahine leadership and looking at it intergenerational perspective on what leadership is and what are their hopes and aspirations for the future. So I'm just getting into sort of that project planning stage, the nitty-gritty, working through all the things that we've been leading up to with like ethics and stakeholder management and everything. So yeah, it's that really exciting stage while also going, oh, but every single time I read something new, it just, my energy levels just go up that next level with all of it. So yes, that's my project.
Awesome. We look forward to seeing your project evolve over the next 40 weeks or so. If you were to, I guess for some of this will be more relevant than others, but if you were to summarize your kind of experience, either fully or so far, in like a few keywords, what would you say?
I would say it's a lot of hard work, but it is very, very, very rewarding. There's the learning cohort that you're with, bouncing ideas off the people that you meet, either online or in person, the teaching and academic staff, and then the experts that come in. It's incredibly rewarding and allows you to explore different opportunities. But but there are times where it's challenging because there's a fair bit of work. But it's a good thing, right? Once you complete that, it's amazing to get that done.
That's very common. We always hear that. The journey is sometimes hard and it has its ups and downs, but it's worth it at the end when you get to, you know, see the fruits of your labor, so to speak, and see what you are able to achieve with that little bit of that lot of hard work along the way.
Absolutely.
Noel or Kyla Lee?
Oh yeah, like I think in terms of, you know, the whole project, it's certainly been rewarding. I think everything that I've done is relevant to supporting, you know, always bring it back to the learners in the classroom, you know, or ACON. And I think what we're doing here is important. So I mean, it's been rewarding, it's been important, it's been, as you know, as Adam says, it's been challenging as well, and trying to balance the complexity of tertiary level study with, you know, family and the profession that you're working in as well. It can't, you know, you got to plan these things out, and but it's achievable, you know, and I think if it was easy, you probably wouldn't get as much satisfaction out of the end result of it as well, you know. So it's, yeah, I feel proud of being able to you know, being able to get towards the end of this, but feel that I've grown along the way as well.
Cool.
Yeah, everything that Adam and Noel have said, the kaupapa is just amazing, and the work that you're doing is just so important. And the support that you get from Academy, but also the support that you get from your cohort is just phenomenal. Made some amazing friendships, and just the fact that you can bounce ideas off each other. You know, when you first start out, you're like, oh, I've got this mountain to climb, but in actual fact, you're doing it with so many other people that you all do it as a team. So yeah, for me, it really is rewarding, but it's also very supportive. And I'm just loving engaging with all the new information. Yeah, you get very, I know I said it earlier, you get very excited by it all. And you the only thing you've got to watch out for is going down those rabbit holes, because you found something new and you just want to keep diving deeper.
Yeah, perfect. I think rabbit holes are part of the fun, but also part of the challenge, in that you find something that you really want, and masters like this give you that opportunity to go down the rabbit hole, and then when you feel like you get too far down and you're at the bottom, there's support there to help you come back up out of that rabbit hole. And we love trajectories, we love things that don't go to plan, but we can always get things back onto plan as well, which is great. Before I carry on, there's one question in the chat around from Vicky. So kia ora, Vicky. Do you need to be in leadership to undertake the masters that Kyla Lee is doing? So the Master of Change and Organisational Resilience? Most definitely not. The Hansine will probably talk a little bit about the types of people who do the program, but you don't have to be in a formal leadership position. You don't have to have had leadership experience. But we like to kind of take the view that everybody can be a leader in some way, shape, or form. And so the Masters is about how can you kind of build your leadership capabilities to then kind of implement or to engage in the project that you undertake. So it might be, for some students, this like what might seem like a really small change, but for others might be a really big change. And it's definitely, as you say, a key theme of DCL, so the Postgrad Certificate in Digital and Collaborative Learning, that we like to have as a bit of a philosophy throughout all of our programs, because everybody has potential and everyone generally has passion for something, and these masters give you that opportunity to kind of realize that potential and follow those dreams and passions of things that like Adam, you might have had an idea floating around for a couple of years, and gives you some structure to turn that idea into a reality, but not have the pressure of having to have an idea either, because you can come in with no idea and we can support you to come up with an idea. If you do have any other questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. If you were to kind of, people on this call, potential master's students or interested in considering master's study in the future, if you were to, what would you say to anyone thinking about studying one of these masters, or just studying now, based on your experiences?
Yeah, I'll start with that because it's an easy one for me. Is just jump in and do it. Definitely, I remember coming to one of these sessions before I joined, and the person that was speaking, they gave some advice around those different rabbit holes, and which making sure that I guess you're able to build on each of the ideas is really, really useful, because otherwise it's a lot of work to go down and do 5 assignments on 5 different ideas. And for me, that was really useful because I took the idea that I had and then tried to stick to it. But I definitely didn't come into it with a closed mind. I came into it with a really open mind to say, well, if there's a different technology or a different thing that I wanted to research after talking to everybody and getting some advice, then I was going to go down that path. So I very much came into it with eyes wide open to explore whatever sort of came up, but incredibly rewarding. And my advice would be to give it a go.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same, you know. I think it's just a case of I guess taking that leap. I know certainly going into the Masters, sometimes you think, is it beyond me? Is it something that I'm going to be able to achieve? And but I think certainly with the support of the advisors and your colleagues as well, your peers you're going to be along with, there was nothing that was actually too hard or too challenging. You know, there's lots of support along the way. So, you know, if there's something that you're struggling with, then that's yeah, there's lots of options for how people can provide that support for you too. But yeah, I think it's incredibly worthwhile experience. And yeah, don't just yeah, I think everyone who signs on to it, you know, if you take that leap into it, I think you're going to be surprised at just how accessible it is in terms of the content.
Awesome.
Yeah, I fully agree with Adam and Noel. It's just about taking that first step, and just work out what are you passionate about and follow that. What I'm doing doesn't align with my work, but I find that it opens so many different doors for the future. So I'm just going, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I'm interested in. And yeah, that I've said it so many times, they're very supportive. So even just having that quick corridor to have the discussion about what are you interested in, and they can help guide you. So yeah.
Oh, awesome. And we've got a great question from Jason, which is a common question that we get as well. How do you make time and space in life and work to focus and maintain progress with your masters? Any tips or tricks that you've learned along the way?
I think some of it's about sort of forward planning, and looking at, you know, there's times when we're all busy and times when when we might not be as busy, and it's just, you know, with assignments, you know, when the assignments are coming up, and so it's trying to plan out ahead, like when am I going to have the time to do this? And yeah, I think that for me that certainly worked for me anyway.
Cool.
Yeah, same for me. It's just making sure that you got the time to be able to do it. There are times where it gets incredibly busy, and so being able to have a flexible employer or be able to juggle your time is important. I was lucky; my employer gave me the time to be able to be flexible, and I started off part-time, and then I switched to the full-time course after that because my employer wasn't incredibly flexible. So yeah, it's about, you know, to Noel's point, planning in advance and making sure you can find that flexibility.
Don't have much more to add on to that. Probably just talking to your whānau, letting them know when something's due so that you can plan with them, so that you're not doing this in isolation. Because, you know, they go on that journey with you for a lot of it as well.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think, you know, like the communication part, you know, is a lot of how to make time and space by communicating, whether that's with your workplace or with us or with your whānau or with yourself, and, you know, having those plans. And we know that sometimes the best laid plans don't always work out, but as we have heard, we can help you when plans don't work out, and when things don't necessarily go to plan, because the average age of the student studying at academyEX is 43, and approximately 95% of all students studying with academyEX work full-time. And so that means that by its very nature, the way in which programs are structured, the way in which support can be offered is for people who are very, very busy, have very busy lives, whether that's work or family, or personal commitments. And so we're able to kind of, you know, make those things work, and be able to to guide and support along the way, to push you when you might need to be pushed, but also to kind of leave you when things might not necessarily be going to plan. Does anybody else on the call have any questions, or Hansine or Herbert or Fiona, any questions that you would kind of throw at the panel? And while you're thinking about that, I can just answer the question that's in the chat about, does the Masters of Contemporary Education lead to teacher registration? Unfortunately not. This master's degree is not an initial teacher education program. And we at academyEX don't deliver an initial teacher education program. The Masters of Contemporary Education is more a kind of professional development for educators who may be classroom teachers, who may be in leadership positions in schools, but you won't have a registerable teaching qualification at the end of the Masters of Contemporary Education. Fiona or Hansine, Herbert, any questions?
No, I'd just add what you were saying, Hayley, about the profile of our students, I guess. We do specialise in postgraduate students. So therefore we are, as Hayley said, got many ways to support you, and if time needs to stop for a little bit, we can stretch that a bit. So all we would ever say is just let us know, just keep in contact with us, and we've got ways to help you. So yes, postgraduate study is very challenging and hard, but it's also something where we can support you with. We're well experienced at it, so don't let that alone put yourself off.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, we've got a team approach as well across the academyEX, and so if there's anything that that we can't help you with directly in the program team, we look at across as well, and there's a lot of synergy and overlap between our programs, which is really advantageous for you as a student. So yeah, it's part and part of how we sort of bring those layers of support in as well.
Adam, Noel, or Kylie, any final words, any parting words, words of advice or inspiration, not to put you on the spot?
No, I mean, I'm incredibly, grateful and thankful that I've done the program. It was a great thing for me to do personally and professionally, and I'd encourage anyone to get stuck in. So,
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, just the same. Like, you know, I've personally got a lot out of it. I've made some great connections with other teachers, and been able to sort of, I guess, nut out some ideas and some theories and things, and you know, I think it certainly helped my own capacity as an educator, and I feel like I've grown through it. So it's certainly been a worthwhile experience for me.
I can just say, if you come along, I've still got 40 more weeks, so say hello if you see me, because I'll be around the lab often. And I just also go, if you get a chance to also get one of the scholarships, awesome, but it's so worth it, just so worth it. I have not regretted that decision whatsoever.
Amazing. That's what we like to hear, even when people are in the depths of implementing their project. That's what we like to hear. So question, some context, I'm in a part-time fixed term role confirmed for 2024, but may differ for 2025. How would the program be impacted, if at all, by change of schools or roles? In essence, it wouldn't be impacted. The program wouldn't be impacted, because we would be able to kind of guide you in how you might be able to take your project from one context to the other. It could be a really great opportunity to try something in a different context. And we have students often who change roles partway through their masters, because sometimes the masters can lead to meeting people or finding out new things, and you end up in a different space to where you started at the beginning. And what we can do is, in your project, even if you're designing your project or implementing it, work with you to kind of merge that project into the new context and space that you find yourself in. So changing roles, changing workplaces, those kinds of things don't negatively impact at all on the program. and we try to make it a good thing and make it a positive opportunity to take that project to the next level. So a massive thank you to Adam and Noel and Kyla Lee for sharing their experiences, their insights, their journey through the various master's programs that they have been on or are on, I should say, as well. And if you guys want to hang around, feel free. But if you do need to go as well, that's okay. If any students or any potential students, I should say, on the call have any questions or anything, feel free to continue to pop them in the chat. And we can work through those as we go as well. So again, just a massive thank you to you all for coming to share your experiences so openly and honestly with all of these people here on the call today. What we're going to do now is I'm just going to share some really brief kind of details about entry requirements and fees. And the reason for doing that here in this part of the session tonight is because they are the same across all programs. And then we're going to dive into each of the 3 masters, and I will hand over to the respective program leads to share their information about the program. So sometimes the biggest first question you can ask is, but how do I know if I can do a master's? And at academyEX, we have 2 different pathways at which you can join a master's program. So on this slide, I'm assuming my slides are shared. Jane is nodding, so that's good. There are 2 pathways. One is an academic pathway. So if you have engaged in tertiary study before, and you have a bachelor's degree or a level 7 graduate diploma or higher, that is regarded as entry into a level 9 master's program. But we know that not all people engage in tertiary study who might want to engage in a master's program. And so we have a second route into our master's programs, which we call equivalence. And so this is where if you haven't engaged in master's level study before, or you haven't engaged to bachelor's level before, but you have a lot of kind of life experience, kind of university of life kind of experience, we can have conversations and gather kind of evidence to support your application towards a master's. And what we do is we assess your experience to make sure that it's equivalent to a bachelor's degree or higher. So it means that we don't exclude anybody. So we're not excluding anybody who hasn't engaged in tertiary study before, but you can still engage in a master's program here with us at academyEX. So the teams and outreach managers will be able to discuss if that relates to you, what that looks like. And it's just another way, I guess, of entering into a master's program that opens the doors for lots of people. And we do have lots of students who haven't done tertiary study before, who come and engage very, very successfully in these master's programs. If you are an international learner, there are English language entry requirements as there are for all New Zealand qualifications, and those are kind of standard at master's level. So evidence of English language if you do IELTS as a test, with an overall score of 6.5, but we also accept lots of other tests as well. So if that's your situation, then we can have a conversation with you as well about English language requirements. So relatively straightforward, hopefully, 2 different ways to enter a master's program, a more academic traditional pathway and a kind of university of life equivalence pathway. In terms of fees, these are different for different programs. All of the details are on the website. So you can see here the first 2 columns represent domestic enrolments, and the second 2 columns represent international enrolments, whether onshore or offshore. I won't go into a lot of detail about this. The information is all available on the website. But just to say this column here where it says part 2 and 3 only, if you have completed a postgraduate certificate prior to engaging in masters, The cost is a little bit different because you've already done a third of a master's program with 60 credits from a level 8 postgraduate certificate. So again, outreach and the team's enrollment team can talk you through any questions around fees, but just to put them here for everybody to see. So we're going to kick off with the Master of Change and Organisational Resilience. This is academyEX's newest master's program. So as Kyla Lee said, she is part of the very first intake of this program, which started in February of 2023. So I'm going to hand over to Hansine, who is the program lead, and we'll go through a little bit about what this master's has to offer. So just let me know when you want me to change slides.
Yeah, all good. Thank you, Hayley. So yeah, obviously my name is Hansine, and I have had the pleasure of leading this master's for the past few months, and taking care of our students. And previous to that, I have been leading, or am leading, the postgrad cert and leading Change for Good. So just a little bit of context there. So the structure of this particular program is something that all of our masters are moving towards as well. So we have our first, if you're moving into part one, where you are, because there's multiple options in terms of the pathways and entry, and I've got a slide on that a little bit later. But if you're going through from part one, you go through this discovery phase, or understanding some different aspects of change and organisational leadership. So there's 4 papers that run 2 at a time together, and so we go through technology, ethics and change, and organisational complexity. So 2 pretty big topics. A lot of it has been accustomed to be comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's where our future lies. Nobody can say where we're going to go with this thing, and change is always something that's really, really hard to do. And alongside of that, we move into people and capability and leadership and culture, as both of those topics really impact the way that we go about this change. And so that makes up the first 20 weeks. And then we move into part 2, which is the planning phase. And that's where we work through research methods and how to undertake research. So if you've done a master's before, it'd be fairly typical, I guess, in terms of some of the concepts that we engage with. Why are we doing the research? What literature are we engaging with? And again, it's similar across all of our master's programs. And the outcome is a project proposal, which also has a learning agreement and your ethics application. And the learning agreement is quite bespoke, again, to our organisation, in a way that you have input into your learning, into your outputs for part 3. And so that's where it becomes very much about what you want to do and how we can support you to achieve that within the space of change and in the environments and context that you are working or living within. So these are supported by weekly online classes for part 1 and part 2. And we also have 6 weekly full day sessions with these parts. And that's where the cohorts come together and and have these full day sessions like Kyla did today. Then once you have your project approved, you move into the actual research phase, and this is where you either work on a large project or a smaller project and some electives. And so we have 4 to 6 weekly full day sessions with this, but no weekly delivery as that is. So it's part 1, part 2 or part 3. And as Hayley mentioned, if you've done a postgrad certificate with us, then you can start in part 2. If you've done study equivalent to part 1, then we can also look at that study and potentially start you in part 2 as well. There's a bit of a process around that. But yeah, so that's the way that this program is structured and sort of broken up. So thanks, Hayley. In terms of part 1, this is just an example of some of the the topics that we would engage with as we weave through the discovery phase. So we always start our program with whakawhanautanga, which is the very first thing that we do. We need to ensure that we create a safe space. A lot of the topics and the way that we engage is oral and through conversation, discussion based. And so what you bring to the table is factored into the overall program delivery, and that's really special. And I think that it adds that relevance and context to the learning that you'll do, and to be able to do that we need a safe space. So we start off in that way, and we want to create that space so that you can engage regularly in the weekly teaching sessions, and part of that is is looking at the concepts of how to engage critically and safely and things like that, and as we go through. So this is just a bit of a snapshot. It wouldn't exactly look like this for you, but it would be something reasonably similar. We also look at what you're bringing to the table and what you're wanting to get out of this through the interview processes that we work through in order to set the teaching schedule as well, but within the 4 topics that I've already mentioned. So thanks, Haley. As we mentioned, the program pathways, there are several, so I won't go through them all, but you can do part 1, which is what I've just described in terms of the discovery part. You can do a postgrad certificate, which is the second option, or if you've been secretly stacking, then you can do some micro-credentials with us that would then lead into part 2. If you are stacking, please let us know so that we can help you get into part 2 nice and smoothly. From there, we do our research methods, or part 2 there, as you can see in the proposal, and you've got another option at this point in time, whether you do the smaller project and micro-credentials or the bigger project. So that's a really detailed diagram, but that's kind of gives you some options and as you go through, and we want to be bespoke to what you want as well. Thanks, Haley. So who is the program for? Yeah, so I think a question came up, do you have to be a leader? No, not at all. Obviously, we want to build your skills and capabilities and understand your leadership component of where you sit within every aspect of your life. But there is an element where we will ask you to research something that you would like an output for or a change for. And so connecting to an organisation, but as Kyla Lee said, it doesn't always have to be. So we work with you, with our advisors across the board to support you choosing a topic and a research focus that will really support you grow and develop throughout the program. So it could be a career changer, it could be wanting to know more about specialist roles within organisational development. It might just wanting to implement a change or something new within the space, or a way of being or operating within a particular space. So there are multiple types of people who come through this program, which makes it awesome, because we just get so many different contexts coming to the table, and we can robustly talk through what that means. And one good change for somebody is very different for somebody else. And so there's a lot of grey space in this space. So it's pretty much for anybody who wants change and who has a passion for change. I think that's about me. Oh, we've got, I've already kind of talked about some of the commitments, but yeah, for part 1 and 2, we have the facilitated online sessions, 1.5 hours, and then the full day workshops are supplementary to that. We do really encourage you to be able to come in person to those. You get a lot more value from those connections and those side chats and just interacting if you possibly can. We do have some hybrid capabilities, but it's not the same as being in person. But we always work with you on those. Thanks, Haley. I'll pass over to Herbert.
Awesome. So Herbert, if you have any questions about the Masters of Change and Organisational Resilience, feel free to pop them into the chat. But otherwise, we'll move on to the Master of Contemporary Education, which has been delivered by academyEX since 2018. So this one's got a lot more history behind it, which Herbert will be able to share with some exciting new changes as well. So Herbert, I'll hand over to you. Oh, I think you might be on mute.
Apologies for that.
Okay.
Right, first of all, my name's Herbert Thomas. I'm Program Lead for the Master of Contemporary Education. I'm going to do a really brief introduction today, and the idea is that if you have any more specific questions, you're more than welcome to get in contact with me, and we can schedule a time where we can discuss in a bit more detail. So first, an important thing is, yes, most of our students come from educational backgrounds, either in tertiary, secondary, or primary schooling, but we also have a number of students who actually come from other areas where they perform educational functions. So whether that's in a government department, whether it's in a business, whether it is in a public library, no problem at all, because you're still able to implement your project in your practice. So it makes no difference whatsoever. I'm not going to read through all the advanced skills that I have listed at the bottom. You can look at those yourself. But I think probably the most important one for me is, by the time you get to the end of the Master of Contemporary Education, we know that you can implement, you can plan, you can implement, you can lead, you can evaluate a project in your own practice, and you can do that in a complex environment, and you can do it with a range of stakeholder groups. And the reason we know that is because that's what you actually do in the program. So I think that's probably the most valuable deliverable for me. So we can move on to the next one. Thanks, Hayley. This is a very brief indication. The structure, the new structure of the MCE looks very similar to the one presented by Einstein for MCore. So there's a part 1, part 2, and part 3. Part 1 essentially consists of 2 courses that focus on digital collaborative learning. Each of those courses is roughly 32 weeks long. Sorry, roughly altogether, sorry, 2 together are roughly 32 weeks long. And they provide a base which the rest of the masters obviously is built on, and the same as the other masters, I'm quite sure. Part 2 focuses more specifically on 2 particular courses. The one is contemporary teaching, where we look at a range of sort of contemporary issues in teaching and education more generally. And then the second course in part 2 is an applied research methods course, which sort of looks at ethics as well as your project plan for part 3. And part 3 is your practice-based change project, very similar to the MCore program. You have the choice of either doing a 90-credit project, which is a bigger one, obviously, or you can do a slightly smaller one, 45 credits, and also 3 elective courses of 15 credits each. So that's a very brief summary. As I say, I'm happy to speak more about this. If you'd like to contact me, you're interested in the program, you can catch up on that, that's fine. So very sort of brief sketch of some of the ways in which we sort of deliver the program. So the first thing I think is we have in the past traditionally scheduled 4 on-campus sessions for you to sort of engage, meet your peers, work in your collaborative peer groups. And so they're very much sort of hands-on sessions. They take place in Auckland at the head office, Khyber Pass Road. Each on-campus session takes place during the school holidays, runs from 9 to 4. So that gives people who don't live in Auckland the ability to travel to Auckland and hopefully travel back home afterwards. Very important date for January is the 15th of January, because that's our orientation session for the new intake. And if you're planning to join us, we really, really, really encourage you to attend the orientation session. You get to know everybody, you get to meet your advisors, you get to spend time with your collaborative peer group. So it's a really valuable sort of event. All other learning takes place online, predominantly through weekly cohort meetings on Zoom. You meet with the teaching team. There's also, of course, Slack, which is our instant messaging system, and we use that extensively for communication and collaboration. We have fortnightly support sessions with the advisor. So you are appointed an advisor when you join us at the beginning of part 2. And of course, there's also the option of individual face-to-face support. So there's a fairly robust support system in the program, and we try to tailor that to your specific needs. So it's very much about becoming aware of what your needs are and then supporting in whichever way is required. So that's a very, very brief summary, as I've said, but I'd be very happy to speak to anybody who's more interested.
Amazing. Thanks, Herbert. And also, if you want to have any questions that you think of right now, and you want to pop them into the chat, feel free to do that, and Herbert and the team can reply that way as well. We'll move now to the Master of Technological Futures. So this program has been delivered since 2017, and is 22 cohorts strong, but also has some exciting kind of evolutions that we've been working on this year for implementation next year. So I'll hand over to Fiona to tell us about those.
Cool, thanks Hayley. Kia ora tātou, ko Fiona Pond tōku ingoa, kaiwhakaheri or program lead for Masters of Tech Futures. And as Hayley said, yeah, 22 cohorts deep we are, so a lot of learning along the way, and that has meant constant refinement, and we're moving to a slightly different model to line up with much of what you've heard around Masters of Change and Organisational Resilience and Masters of Contemporary Education starting next year. So look, who's it for? It sounds a bit trite, but really is for anyone. You don't have to be techie. I know that Adam was, and that's his experience. But it really is about just having that curiosity and understanding that there's potentially a different way to address some of these wicked problems that we face, and that technology is inevitably, or most likely, going to be a part of that solution. So looking for, I guess, new solutions for old problems. So if you have one of those or a challenge that you've identified, this might be a good program for you to explore that through. So on the slide there, it talks about an opportunity for career changes, also for those working in-house, entrepreneurs. And we also have students, much like Adam, who want to build a particular product or a framework. So moving more into that startup space. But as I said, the common denominator there is just wanting to use tech for good, to have a problem or a space that you want to explore, and have technology, be willing to look through the lens of emerging disruptive technology. EDT is an acronym you'll hear us say quite a bit, and that stands for these emerging disruptive technologies, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. But just on that last point there, who's it for? We have students coming in from all industries and sectors. In Adam's cohort, there would have been about 22 students starting there, coming in from, for example, energy, education, healthcare, engineering, all go through the same process, but all come out with completely different projects. And I think that's what's really exciting about these masters, is you essentially get to design your own output and project. We could just jump to the next slide, Hayley. So yes, the similar structure might look a bit similar to you from what Hansine talked you through. Part one, or play as we like to call it, is where we really want to give you the space and time to look at some of the emerging disruptive technologies, but not just that, also the impacts they're having on us in society, so how they're beginning to play out and disrupt various systems. Those are the first two courses you'll see there. And then obviously technology and ethics. So we're all aware that with technology there comes ethical issues and concerns that need to be explored too. So bringing the people and planet into those conversations. And then the fourth part there in play is around technology and practice. So what is the context? How do you play out into this? What's your role in your professional practice? Perhaps your personal, your community. How do you show up in this technology changing world? So part one, 20 weeks, we really just encourage people to play in that space. You don't have to come in with an idea. Often we have people that have no idea, or they might have many ideas, or they might have a particular idea that they want to follow through on. And we have a way to help you by the time that you get through to the end of that play session. Those first 20 weeks, you've narrowed it down to a couple of two or three ideas that you can take into part two, which is where you start to build out that project plan. So if you've got that glimmer of an idea you want to start to develop, we've got space here for you to really explore how that might look for you. So similar to the others, it's around that applied work-based project and how you can best shape that up to take out into the real world, I guess. So that's where you move into part three, which is the do. So our model is a play, plan, do. Do is go forth and do your project. Do it with our support, and you'll see down below there that we have a number of ways that we can support you more intensively in the play and plan parts of the course, but certainly right through project as well. One thing I will call out here is Converged, which is a community that we have where is a across the organisation, across cohorts, across programs, a space for you to come in and share your ideas really early on, get feedback on them, get the wisdom of crowds, hive mind. We're really about feedback. So wherever you can get it, we'd like to encourage you to take up those opportunities, and Converge is a great place for that. Similar to MCORE, delivered in a weekly online class with full day sessions every 6 weeks through the play and plan space. And then again, as we move into project, we bring you back together every 4 to 6 weeks for that cohort contact, because as you would have heard from our panel earlier, your cohort's a huge part of your learning experience, and bouncing off each other, keeping those connections throughout is a big key ingredient to the success in the Masters program. You can jump on, Hayley. Here is some indicative content. I obviously won't read all this out, but this will help you have a feeling for the different courses. So there's the first 4 courses in play there, and then how we help you pull that all together in projects. So again, if you look at it, EDTs is the first course. Second is disruptive systems. So what's the impacts of those EDTs? Technology and ethics, so bringing the people and planet back into it. And then yourself, how does that play out into your space? And project proposal will give you all the tools and frameworks, etc., to bring that together into a project proposal. Why Masters Tech? Yep, a list of reasons there. Obviously, you'll get your NZQA master's degree. But more than that, I think our students find it's the project and the real world learning that comes out of it. So yes, you get a wonderful certificate to hang on your wall and to go on your CV, but you get this opportunity to shape a real world project that has immediate impact out there. The other key thing too that we hear time and time from our students is the network they get to make from their cohort through the different industry advisors and speakers that we bring in. And then also the community itself, so academyEX, we really try and build a strong community sense, and I hope you picked some of that up from our panel discussion earlier. And I think that might be me, Hayley.
Cool. Thanks so much, Fiona and Herbert and Hansine, for those whirlwind overviews. We know that's a lot of information, but as everybody said, if you have any questions or would like to talk about the different masters options, so you may be sitting there thinking, oh, that one looks interesting, but that one looks interesting too. How do I know which one is the right one for me? Those are the kinds of conversations that we can have to help support you and make sure, one of the most important things to us is that the program that you do is the right program for you, and that it's going to help you to achieve the goals and aspirations that you have moving forward. So there's a couple of questions in the chat which I will answer towards the end, but we're just going to do a little bit here around funding your masters. So I will hand over to Lisa, and Lisa, just let me know if you want me to change slides at any point.
Thank you, Hayley. Kia ora, everyone. Just a really quick overview of the many different options for external funding and support. And we can, either myself or Megs can take you through these after the call. There's fees-free study link. We have handy templates that you can massage to approach your work, your school, your board, your kahuiako for assistance. We have a list of external opportunities for scholarships. In fact, there are some that are coming up due to close on the 16th of December. So please reach out if you'd like that list. We run sessions on funding your masters for Teach NZ application. It's a 6 or 7 page application, and we'll support you through that journey. We offer early bird discounts, and our invoices are sent per part. So if you're doing a master's starting at part 1, you'll be sent 3 invoices, one at the beginning of part 1, one at part 2, and one at part 3. So that would be 30, a third each time. And if you're starting at part 2, it'd be 50% each part. Can I have the next slide, please? We have academyEX have a limited range of scholarships per intake of 50% of the fees. We have Tangata Whenua Impact for those with the intent to do good for the world, people, the planet, Taipeki for those over 60, and Pacific Arco. And again, we're here to help. So if you have any questions, please reach out.
Cool, thanks, Lisa. So obviously we know that, you know, sometimes financially can be a barrier to enrolling into postgrad education. So there's a few different options that you can kind of explore. And as Lisa said, both her and Megs, the outreach manager, are more than happy to talk with you through the different options that might be most applicable in your particular context. So now I'm just going to, Mason, who is our international marketing manager, is just going to run through a few things from those for those international students and agents that are here on the call. So Mason, I'll pass it over to you and let me know when you want to change slides.
Yep, sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Mason. I'm the International Marketing Manager of academyEX. I've got 2 slides to share some basic information for international students and agents, and I've seen a few in the attendance. So following up on the funding options on top of what Lisa's mentioned, there's one International Student Excellence Scholarship that we're offering for 2024. We will offer each awardee up to 11,000 towards the tuition fee. If you are confident that your previous academic results and your previous work is really, really good, so you can apply for round 2 and round 3, because round 1 we have just offer 2 awardees of really outstanding students, international students. So you will be able to see all the information on our international student page. And we also offer, if you miss the opportunity to get the scholarship, you'll still be able to get the early bird saving if you enroll 8 weeks before the program starts. So next slide. So because the whole idea about this event is to tell you a bit more about our master's program and what we offer differently from other universities or private higher education providers. We are also covering some possible pathways for you to consider. Because for an international student during the study, you will be able to work up to 20 hours per week. You can come with your partner or your spouse and your children, and during your study, you will be able to be a volunteer in different organizations or look for an internship. So after completing the study with academyEX, you'll be able to, and fulfilling all the minimum requirement by the Immigration New Zealand, you'll be able to get a 3-year post-study work visa. And there's some basic, like fulfillment and requirements that the government needs. So, or you can consider studying other program with us, or moving on to your further academic career in doing a PhD, for example. We have seen a lot of domestic students building their own business after graduating from academyEX. So you can also consider that. It would be great that you'll be returning your country with the new skill set and knowledge you learn from us, and your network you build with the rest of your cohort. So there are a lot of possibility for international students. There will be different set of challenges from other domestic students, but we have a really strong student experience team to support. So I'm really passionate about taking care of our students, make sure that our domestic student and the international student will be able to succeed. So back over to you, Haley. So I will put my contact in the chat, and you'll be able to contact me if you is an agent or if you're an international student.
Amazing, thanks, Mason. International students are an emerging kind of space for us here at academyEX, and we're really excited to be entering into that space and welcoming international students into our masters, which will just add another layer of to the cohort of people that you'll get to engage with, bringing that global kind of experience and knowledge and expertise into cohorts with domestic students as well. So as Mason said, any questions around that, she's more than happy to have a chat with you at any point. So we've come to the point of any questions, and I know there's a few questions in the chat, so I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so I can see the chat and see where we got up to. Dana, if I miss any, let me know. But a question, are the credit courses we're seeing in the play section of MTF, can you select from them if you do a smaller project? Those Part 1 credits, or courses, I should say, in the Master of Technological Futures are for Part 1, so they can't be used as elective courses further on down the line. But if you come in with a postgraduate certificate already, having already done 60 credits, then we can kind of explore options for how the rest of your 120 credits are made up if you want to pursue a smaller 45 credit project. And the other electives and micro-credentials that we have to offer don't fit with your kind of areas of interest and expertise. We have enough flexibility in the program structure and program approval to be able to kind of customize and personalize pathways for individual students, and work through kind of the practicalities and logistics of that, which is always sometimes the most difficult part in making it all work practically. So another question around stacking micro-credentials into a master's, if you want to do that. So there are specific courses or specific micro-credentials which are approved as courses that can be, I guess, counted towards each of the different master's degrees. The Masters of Change and Organisational Resilience was the first master's program in Aotearoa to have stackable micro-credentials included as part of the official program approval. So we will be able to provide a list of micro-credentials that are relevant to each of the different programs. Is it possible to take an MCOR paper of interest and credit towards MTF and vice versa? It's a really interesting question, and one that is a little bit tricky because of the way the courses are taught. So you may have noticed in both Hansine and Fiona's slides, the courses were stacked kind of two on top of each other. That means those courses are taught and assessed in an integrated way. So the content and the assessment is for both of those courses over the 10-week period. So it does make it difficult to separate them out into single standing, I guess, 15 credit courses. But there are ways that we can kind of explore what that might look like if there was something specific that somebody wanted to look into, and there were particular things. It's really hard to explain kind of the depth of the courses, and the titles can be a little bit deceiving. So it might in fact be that some of the things that you're really interested in do appear in MTF or MCOR or vice versa. So we can have a kind of conversation around that for each person if we needed to. A question is an international student in MCOR who's from a design background. So we do have quite a few creatives in the Masters of Change and Organisational Resilience. What is the support like in terms of the course in a new country and support with applying for a visa? It can get overwhelming. It definitely can. And Mason will be able to work really closely with, or she works very closely with all of our international students with the different things you need to apply for a visa and support in moving countries and all of those kinds of things. So I'll leave Mason to kind of pick that up with you offline, but suffice to say that the questions definitely and the support is definitely there for all of our students, international and domestic. Jonah, did I miss any questions? I think we're all good. Any kind of last questions? Anything else from any of the team that you want to share or say before we close off with karakia? No. So as Jana has put into the chat, the recording of this session, the slides, a bit of a recap will all be shared with everybody who registered for this event in the next couple of days. Anna will also include links to any other useful information and the people who you can reach out to have a conversation about any particular your scenario. And because we can make things personalized, it's very case by case, and hopefully this session has given you a broad overview of the different types of programs, given you some inspiration to think about what might be and what might be possible, and to kind of, as our panel said, take that next step, take the leap, and dive into it, to follow those aspirations and those goals and achieve what you would like to achieve. So a big thank you to everybody who joined this afternoon. I will close us off with karakia, and we will all be able to go on our way and enjoy the rest of our evening. Ka whakairihia te tapu kia wātia ai te ara, kia turiki whakata ai, kia turiki whakata ai. Haumie, huie, tai kia. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy your evening, and we hope to speak with you all soon.